There was no note or anything by the wedding ring? What'd you say her last name was? There was no note or anything by the wedding ring?
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. In this episode, we are going to look at Coonrod catching what's in a lie. And, you know, if you're thinking that that's really no big deal, you know, Watts is telling a lot of lies, he was lying all the time. Catching him out in a lie really isn't kind of rocket science, then I'd be inclined to agree with you. What we're actually going to be looking at, Coonrod doesn't actually realize he's caught Watts in a lie, but he has. And from the clip that I've played, I've sort of provided a clue, so I wonder whether you know what that refers to. So before we get to that, I'm going to be starting a timeline countdown of the John Benet Ramsey case, and I will let you know at the end of this episode when that will start. So before we get to that, and before we get to this episode, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do like, share, leave a comment, and let's get started. So in this episode, we're going to look at really two almost counter, sort of almost polar opposites, and in a kind of a sense. So on the one hand, what I want to sort of just direct your attention to, again, it's not really rocket science to sort of catch Chris Watts telling a lie. He told lots and lots and lots of lies, right? But what I want to do instead is just show you how criminals slip away when people aren't paying attention. And so when you think about that clip that we heard right in the beginning of this episode, as he sort of walks away, he sort of walks into the bedroom, Coonrod says something like, and there wasn't a no to anything, and Watts answers something like no, he sort of mutters no. And what is kind of ironic in that situation is that Nicoles Atkinson is standing sort of right beside him when that happens. She's kind of in the loft area, and Coonrod sort of walks away. Now I'll tell you why this is significant. It's significant because Shan'ann did actually write a note, right? The question or the issue that Coonrod is sort of testing here is kind of around the leaving of the wedding ring, right? Chris Watts is sort of saying that Shan'ann left the wedding ring behind, and that was her way of saying, I'm done with this marriage, right? Which wasn't true, but that was what he was trying to put words into Shan'ann's mouth, right? He was trying to steal her story. He was trying to, cover up the reality of what was going on. But it was within that kind of context, within the context of leaving a message with the ring, that Coonrod sort of wondered, well, didn't she maybe leave a note as well? Didn't she sort of express her intentions? And I think most of us would say the same thing. No, well, she didn't. Shan'ann didn't leave a note. But she did. Shan'ann did leave Chris Watts a note on between the 9th and the 10th of August. So she left it on the kitchen counter, I think on the morning of the 10th of August, the morning that she left for Arizona, right? And I'm not going to go through the contents of the note, but that note basically ends off with a very awkward message, which is, I will sort of love you always. You know, I'm never going to give up on us. And that doesn't match Chris Watts' story. And that is why it's a lie. So it's a lie that Shan'ann didn't leave a note. And, you know, if Watts was innocent, Watts could have said, yes, she did leave a note, and show him the note, show him the 2 pages. I mean, where was that note? What happened to the note? That's one of the little mysteries of this case. What happened to the note that Shan'ann gave to him? And so the question is, was it photographed? Is the note that is in the Netflix documentary also the photographed note? If so, where is the actual note? What happened to it? Did Watts sort of burn it in the barbecue that he made? Did he tear it up and just throw it kind of in the garbage? Did he sort of ball it into a ball of paper and who knows, just throw it out? What happened to it? It would be interesting to know. But what I'm trying to say to you is, the other side is also, if Nicole Atkinson had said something at that point, that would have made things quite interesting as well, just on that simple question. She didn't leave a note or anything. I don't know whether Nicole Atkinson knew about the note. What I do know is I call it the Atkinson Transcript, but it's basically I think it's 72 pages where Agent Zentner talks to Nicole Atkinson at her work. I think it was at night on the Tuesday. I think it was sort of around about the time that Watts was being interrogated by Coda before he was Mirandized, also on Tuesday night. In any event, Greg Zentner interviewed her, and during this interview she did mention something about a letter, and so this is a quote from that interview. It's from page 62, so near the end of the discussion. And Nicole Atkinson said, and she told us she was going to write him a letter over the weekend. Whether she did or not, there's a book that was in her purse. It's a green book, and it says like some quote on the front of it. So I don't know if there was a letter in there that she started to write to him, or if she was writing stuff down and like things she could change or she done wrong or whatnot. But she had that book with her the whole weekend. It was a notebook, like a binded notebook. It's like a mint green, and for the life of me I can't remember what it says on it, on the front of it. And then she goes on to say she had the whole weekend and she was writing in it off and on. So I don't know if that, but that was at the house with him. So it is possible that the draft of the letter, because we know that from the Netflix documentary that Shan'ann wrote kind of a rough draft and then she actually rewrote it and just did it sort of better. I don't know where she wrote the rough draft. I do know that the paper, the margins of the draft and the final letter seem to be from different sources, from different paper. So I don't know, but it's possible that if the draft was done in this notebook, that it would still have been in there. It's also possible she may have put some of her thoughts in the notebook, but the flip side of that is she may have just used that notebook to record sort of aphorisms from the Thrive conference and sort of motivational things. It may not have had much to do with her personal life. I could be wrong. I'm just saying that this is what she was saying. The bottom line here is that Nicole Atkinson did have some knowledge that Shan'ann, she was aware that Shan'ann had told them that she was going to write him a letter over the weekend. Now, she may have assumed that was still going to happen. In other words, she was going to give him the letter either on Monday or when she got back. She may not have known that Shan'ann had already given him the letter, given him the note, or she may have misunderstood. It is, I think, kind of significant that Nicole didn't really say anything. In other words, when Coonrod said there was no note or anything, but then unfortunately he walks away, that was an opportunity for Nicole to say something about the letter. And again, you might say, well, where's all of this going? It doesn't really matter. It does matter because if they had found that letter, if they'd also looked for the letter on Shanann's phone, and I think they probably did find the letter on her phone anyway. I think that is what they found on her phone when they did a quick analysis on it. They were able to find it and read it, and that told them everything as well. That told them, and I don't think Chris Watts knew this. I don't think he was aware that they could have read the letter that she wrote to them on her phone and seen that she didn't intend to leave him. She wasn't unhappily married. She was, at the end, still declaring her love and her commitment and her investment in the relationship with him, right? So that's the one side of it. So what I'm just in summary, what I'm kind of getting at is that Coonrod was completely on the right track there. And in a way, he threw the towel on his own question. He sort of turned his back on Watts and Nicole Atkinson as he walked into the bedroom, and was just saying, well, there was no to anything, and all Chris Watts had to do was sort of murmur no. Of course there was. And there's Nicole Atkinson standing there, but she's probably thinking, I don't know whether Chris Watts has done anything. I don't know whether, and that's the other side. It doesn't necessarily mean, but all I'm saying is that it is important for witnesses to mention everything they know, because it can mean a lot and it can change the course of an investigation. So that is the one side of the story. The other side of the story is where Coonrod goes next door and he talks to Trustnastic, and they view the video footage, and then Chris Watts exits the scene, and then between the two of them, Trustnastic sort of intimates that Chris Watts isn't acting right and that he's very suspicious. And now it's also difficult to know how much of Trustnastic's testimony to rely on, because he later kind of recanted some of it. He said, well, maybe I was exaggerating, or those weren't the words he used, but he said something like, I don't know if they were arguing any more than anyone else would argue. In any event, what is quite interesting is, although Trustnastic was correct and he was right about Watts didn't load tools, he's also right that it was strange that Watts went to so much trouble to back. He didn't just back his truck up the driveway, he backed it right up the driveway, where that little section at the back was obscured by the little section of wall. And I think that is quite significant. He didn't just back it up, and that's something he noted. The other thing he noted was that he was swaying from left to right. He was talking a lot. He was a guy who usually didn't say very much. But in terms of his actual behavior, he said Chris Watts never backs his truck up, and he doesn't put a lot into his truck. It's usually like, he would say something like a water container, a bag that he says looked like it was carrying a notebook, computer, and maybe a lunchbox or something. But in other words, he wouldn't really need to take more than 1 or 2 trips. And so this was very unusual. And I think that is a issue that the police and witnesses face, is the ability of people to express themselves in words, in English, in a way that clearly captures what they know and what is strange about a situation. So anyway, let's listen to that little section where Trustnastic is explaining why he thinks Watts' behavior is suspicious, and then Coonrod actually says, well, it might be completely normal behavior.
You can ask them. He's normally quiet, real subdued. He's over here telling you 3 times what he took out, what he did. He's very, he never talks. So the fact that he's over here blabbing his mouth makes me kind of suspicious.
Yeah, but put yourself in his situation.
Oh, I agree.
Anyone's going to be nervous. You don't know what to do.
No, I agree, but I'm just saying the way he told you 3 times what he brought with him, why is he telling you exactly what he brought with him instead of saying, oh, they didn't see anybody out here, he didn't see anybody doing anything? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Why is he so worried about you knowing what he's carrying out? That's all I'm saying.
The detective's talking to him.
What's that?
The detective's talking to him.
He's talking to him right now? Okay.
So what you can also pick up in this is that once Chris Watts has left Nathaniel Trustnastic's lounge, once he's not there anymore, they start sort of talking about him behind his back being suspicious or whatever. They talk about, and it's Trustnastic sort of doing it. Nicole Atkinson, in a way, to her credit, doesn't really say very much. And Nicoles is also there, and he also makes a few comments about backing up. I say to her credit because, in a sense, we've all got to remember with everybody, it's innocent until proven guilty. And I think when Chris Watts was standing there, that is maybe a time, even for a lay witness, to say, you don't seem to be acting right. There's nothing wrong with that. In a situation like that with the police, to say, why are you acting so weird? You're sort of moving, in other words, in front of the policeman, you say something like that, then he's got to defend himself. Then he's got to explain his behavior. And in this case, he was guilty. But bear in mind, obviously, we have the benefit of hindsight, and we know the situation now. I think for most people in a situation where you don't know the outcome, and it's somebody maybe that you don't know that well, that is involved with someone maybe that you do know that well, are you going to know everything kind of in a moment? And the answer is no. You're going to be quite cautious about what you say, and you're going to be quite careful about what you don't know for sure. And of course, the perpetrator, in this case Chris Watts, is going to use what you don't know to his advantage, right? And how the law works is the law does give you the benefit of the doubt until anything is proved, right? So the purpose of this episode is really to show you how things can slip away. For example, in terms of the note that was actually written, and Nicole Atkinson did sort of know about it. Now, obviously it's no train smash. Law enforcement did eventually find out about it. Fortunately, in terms of this case, Shan'ann photographed it. But it could easily have been something that could have been completely lost. Shan'ann could have written the note, not told anyone, and Watts could have taken the note and destroyed it, and we would never have known about it, right? I do think her writing that note, which in a way exonerated herself, the note also shows her commitment for her children, for the whole family. She didn't know that she was going to be implicated in his little story. But it is interesting that she wrote a note, and apparently he also wrote a note. He wrote a note apparently when he visited his family, saying if she does something. And I mean, I think that's also very interesting, because why didn't Ronnie produce that note whenever? I mean, why was that note not produced? That's another note where one can ask, well, what's the story behind that? Anyway, I'm not going to take things further than that. There are a couple of you who have been talking about the Does That Make Sense shirt that has been showing a couple of times in various episodes, and a couple of you have been saying, well, I'd buy that shirt kind of thing. Well, the good news is those shirts are available on Teespring, so I'll put a link for that in the description. According to Teespring, if you order now, you will get it by Christmas. And so there are some really nice shirts in different colors with Does That Make Sense on it, as well as leggings, socks, and whatnot. So head on over there if you're interested. It's a great way of supporting me and this channel, and if you do support me, I would really appreciate it. In terms of JonBenet Ramsey, the timeline countdown starts the 10th of December. So from the 10th of December, I'll be taking you through the chronology of the JonBenet Ramsey case, in chronological order, but also in real time. And you're going to see how that kind of changes the case in a big way. There's quite a lot to talk to you about the timeline, and starting on the 10th of December is kind of an arbitrary date. One could really start anywhere, because there's just so much in terms of that timeline. The family dynamics in the Ramsey case are really quite complicated. Anyway, that is my story. Thank you guys for listening. For those who've subscribed recently, thank you, and welcome to the channel. And I'll see you guys next time.